Hello and welcome to the GBC. I am your host, Nash Colberg. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Chad and John. Chad and John are the leaders of SBS CyberSecurity here in Madison, South Dakota. Both graduates of Dakota State University went on to co-found SBS CyberSecurity, which now has over 90 employees and is a leader in its space. We're so happy to have you guys on. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here, Nash.
You may or may not know, but we start every episode off with a 5-question rapid-fire quiz. It's kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but better, because today we're offering $50 of stone cold cash if you can get 4 out of the 5 correct. Are you ready?
Ready.
Microsoft included what game in its earliest machines to calm down users from being intimidated by their computers? It's a hint. I'll give you a hint. It's a card game.
Solitaire.
Solitaire. Correct.
I was going back to the DOS days.
All right, 1 for 1. Question 2. In what year did NSA name DSU a Center of Academic Excellence in Computer Security? One of the first in the country. In what year? And if you need a hint, I can give you a hint. It was when you guys were going to college.
That's a good guess.
Remember, so we got 4 years or so that, so I'm going to say 2002.
2004.
2004. 2 for 2. That's impressive. That's impressive. Which video game console released in 2006 pioneered motion controls in gameplay?
The Atari.
The Wii.
The Wii.
I'm going back to...
I'm going to let you go first every time.
Yeah, it gives us like a second chance.
That's actually worked really well.
All right, question 4. A Rochester, New York organization developed what open source operating system written in more than 3 lines of code and named after short form poetry?
Ubuntu?
Rochester, New York.
It's a type of poetry, like it's
Prose.
haiku.
Okay.
Haiku.
Oh.
If you get this right, you'll get the 4 for 5. Where should someone go if they're interested in seeing what their company has for risk in cybersecurity and how to best protect themselves from that risk?
Well, I know this one. SBS CyberSecurity.
And specifically track.
Correct. You got the 4 for 5. $50 of stone cold cash are coming your way.
Oh, thanks.
Now we'll dig into the interview. So GBC is all about sharing unique stories, success stories, unique businesses and opportunities here, specifically in Madison today. And SBS is definitely at the top of that list. Can you guys share how did SBS come about and how did it get to where it's at today?
I don't know, I think of like we have used the garage band story. We were working on small projects. We'd get together for a gig and we'd meet wherever we could. We'd meet on campus in a meeting room or at the coffee shop or someone's house. To
Each other's basements.
Yeah, basements. Just to work on these small projects that people were bringing up as issues in the banking community.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the undercurrent of the time, the 2004, 2005 time frame was that banks started getting regulated on IT stuff like they were getting regulated on everything else that they did in banking. And nobody had anybody that really knew or understood technology at these banks. They knew how to use it. As an example, the first exam that I was ever a part of back in, it was probably 2005, was with one of the first clients that we ever worked with. And they had, there's a law that came out it was passed in 99 and became effective in 2000 called GLBA, the Grant-Leach-Bliley Act, that required financial institutions to have a written information security program and oversee risk, manage risk, all of that kind of stuff, like they do for loans and all of these other things.
Sure.
So as an example, they named their head cashier as their information security officer. That was a requirement of GLBA. And that was really common back in the day, and it still is kind of common in some areas. Like you've got a kid going to school for computer stuff, so you're our ISO. Or this person had the first email address at the bank, so you're our ISO.
Sure.
So I was working, the gentleman's name was Joe. I was working with Joe, and it was exam time, and the examiner came, and that first examination was, he sat us down and said, all right, we're going to talk about information security and IT stuff. Do you have passwords on your computers? He asked us. And we said, well, yes. He's like, cool, let's get back to safety and soundness. And I exaggerate a little bit, but it was a 30-minute conversation at most. And that next year, he came back and said, hey, remember how we talked about some stuff last year for IT? This year, if you can't show me you're doing it and you don't have it documented, then we're going to have to write you up. So that was really what drove kind of the idea around SBS cybersecurity, is how do we help banks really understand what's going on with technology, with risk, how to be successful in their examinations, and how to make good cybersecurity decisions going forward. So we didn't use the term cybersecurity back in 2004, 2005.
So it kind of started as like a consulting, almost education kind of piece.
Yeah, there's a lot of education that really underpins everything that we do here at SBS.
So if you guys were to have like 3 pillars of what you guys kind of, do, what would those 3 pillars be?
Education, consulting, and auditing.
Nice. Growing up, is this what like you guys were interested in? I know it was just coming about and technology was changing so much in the late 90s and early 2000s. Did you see yourself being here, or any idea when you were growing up?
I thought DSU was a great option for a school. There weren't very many focusing on technology. Looked at others like Mankato. They did software development stuff, but they had a lot of cool stuff here. But I didn't think at the time I'd be in security. That wasn't really a hot thing on my list. So I thought I was going to grow up to manage networks or systems somewhere. And along the way, the Center of Excellence came, as your trivia alluded to, and I really got interested in how to protect that investment in technology.
Sure.
So Chad and I are both farm kids that I think developed an interest in technology, probably from school and friends and those types of things. So similar to Chad, no, definitely didn't. There wasn't even really such a thing. I mean, there was a thing called information assurance back in the day, but there wasn't even an option for that at DSU at the time until the master's program came along in 2004. So similar to Chad, I thought it was either going to be software development or network administration. My personal story there is that I didn't do an internship. I didn't have experience in any of this stuff, and it came time to graduate, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had effectively 2 options: go try to find a network administration job, of which there were not many in 2004 available, especially for somebody that didn't have experience doing it, or I could go program COBOL for an insurance company in Minnesota. And the third option presented itself. I had no interest in programming COBOL. But the third option presented itself to go to the master's program, and after a long, hard heart-to-heart with myself, I figured 5 years of college was pretty fun. I could probably handle 2 more.
Sure. How do you guys stay on top of the ever-changing technology world? Over the last 20 years you guys have been in business, I mean, we've seen probably the most advancement in technology we ever have. How do you guys stay on top of that?
I try to be involved in it, so I try new things. So early buyer of Bitcoin as an example, just to try it and see how it works, learn about it. Today, some of the neat fintech technologies that are out there, I like to just try it out, see what it's like. Keeps you kind of plugged into all the different pieces that are moving there. I think the education part of our role also forces us to stay on top of the news, what are the big happenings, big stories, so we can tell those to others, and here's what's going on with this data breach or security issue. So there's a avalanche of problems these days. Early on, we could run around and talk about the Heartland data breach for 6 months before the next one would come up. And
Sure.
today I might have to message you and like, what's the backstory on the MGM one? How's that different than the other casino? I don't know which one. So there's just so much happening. It is a challenge, and I think people are becoming narrower experts as time goes on to keep a deep focus in what they do.
Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you have to be involved in it. You have to live and breathe it. Is probably a too deep of a term, but you really have to. We use the word passion. It's up on our wall right over here, right? I mean, you just have to be passionate about it. You have to continuously learn the environment, getting your hands into new technology, teaching, writing a certification program around it, presenting at a conference, all of those things, writing blog posts. I spent my late Friday morning after our coffee break last Friday putting together a blog post on the CrowdStrike thing that was going on so we could get some information out to our folks. Thank you, Microsoft Copilot, for getting me 75% of the way there. But that's a little different than it used to be too, because you can crank out a nice blog post in an hour, whereas it would take me 2 to 3 hours before AI. But so living, breathing it is part of our culture around here, and that's the beauty of having a consulting team that's out there in it every day. Our audit teams are finding the governance stuff that's going on with organizations. What are folks lacking? What are we seeing across the board? And then our hacker team, our network security team, finding technical issues that we see kind of consistently with clients too. So all of that really comes together to be at the tip of our spear here at SBS, which is training and education.
Yeah. You guys both seem, obviously passionate about what you want to do or what you're doing. That seems to be a common theme in a lot of successful businesses, is having that passion and that love, for what they do. How do you guys keep that, and how do you, spread that to others throughout throughout SBS?
Well, I think we've got a big focus on our culture, but I think it starts even before that, as to when we're hiring people. We're looking for those values in them before they come here.
Sure.
So the interviewee that is building a server farm in his basement or hosts a bunch of stuff in the clouds, that's super exciting. Like, this kid's got passion. So we look for those people to add more of that to what we have. But it's one of our core values that we measure people on, we talk about with people. We allow time to be passionate and learn and explore things. So we kind of approach that through culture and encouraging them to grow and develop. And we share the news with them. Every week on our coffee break John was talking about, we highlight like 5 news stories that are happening. So no matter what department you're in here, we're talking about issues that our industry is having.
Sure.
So we're continually educating them as well as we go.
And demonstrating. We do book studies on our coffee break. We talk about AI, how somebody at the company has found a really fantastic use for AI. Maybe it's in Excel to create charts automatically, like we talked about last week, or build a PowerPoint presentation. At our company retreat last year, we had a little contest with all of our employees. We broke them up into groups and said, go build a website, go do a blog post, and we give them 10 minutes.
Wow.
And we're turning that into a course for the Graduate School of Banking here in a week.
Yeah.
A week from tomorrow.
Debut.
I'll be teaching that course there. So we're talking about speed and, with AI, how it can help an accountant build a web page in 10 minutes, or at least the start of a web page.
Right.
And that accountant's never coded a single line of code in his life.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's the passion. It's also the innovation. We talk about innovate or die. We can't, Nash, you talked about how things have changed over the last almost 25 years now. I mean, we've been doing SBS has been alive for 20 years. Back when we started, I remember talking with folks that were really excited to get their first desktop workstation, because it was the first time that people could really afford a workstation for all of their employees. now we're moving back to the cloud, and we got virtual desktops, and people are working from home. So
Yeah.
technology is this interesting cyclical thing.
Right.
But as Chad mentioned, you find the people that are passionate about learning, they're passionate about innovating, they care about what they're doing, they care about getting good value to a customer. And that's really kind of our big job, is to empower our customers to do awesome things from a technology perspective and really understand the risk that comes along with it.
Yeah. John had just mentioned AI there for a second. How has that been changing, and what does that look like in cybersecurity from a threat standpoint?
Boy, we could probably do a whole segment on that. I mean, the 30-second version, I mean, it's going to do great things for the world. As equally great, there will be challenges that it presents. So on the challenges side, I mean, I hate to always highlight the risks because there's so many great things that are going to balance it out. But there was a $25 million fraud in overseas in China here 4 or 5 months ago. A virtual meeting was happening, and the CFO who was in the meeting was an AI-generated CFO. So they requested a $25 million transfer, and the business sent the money. So, and it was all virtually done. I mean, you were there. I could see you, talk to you, and it was all AI-driven fraud scheme. So we're going to see a lot more of that. Phishing emails that we are all plagued with every day are just going to get much more frequent, better written, even tailored better to individuals, because it can go out and collect all this data and write it on the fly for you, just like a blog post. So yeah, it's going to transform a lot of the challenges we face, for sure.
Yeah, it's improving cybersecurity attacks, just like it's improving the way that we identify and prevent cybersecurity attacks. So it's kind of an across-the-board situation. You know, the rising tide lifts all boats, if cliche, if you will. But it on the trying to
positive
say that,
side,
yeah.
Wow.
On the positive side, right? It is making the identification of cyber attacks better, faster, and you get to shut stuff down quicker.
Sure. Why should, I mean, this might seem like a basic question, but like to the viewers, why should someone care about their cybersecurity threats?
I mean, it's your livelihood. It's become our life. It affects everything we do. I need to go to the ER today because I fell and broke my arm. Well, the hospital's closed because they had ransomware. I mean, it can start to affect everything we do in our life. My medical data, my financial data in the wrong hands is identity theft. My father-in-law just had a credit card created in his name and had to deal with a bunch of problems to clean that up. So it's just part of the world we live in anymore. It's not this separate issue that affects someone else. It's our issue as individuals. From the small things, when CrowdStrike was down the other day, I mean, our local golf course couldn't take reservations for tee times. I mean, it's such a disaster, you know. But it's just affecting our daily lives. Yeah, absolutely.
And to play off the CrowdStrike thing, you know, there were flights that were canceled.
Oh,
we had 3 individuals from Florida, Tennessee, and Texas that came up here to the office, remote employees, and they were meeting. They met all week long, and it took 4 days for our Tennessee employee to get home. We had another employee that was in Sioux Falls, but he was in Florida with his family over the weekend, and he didn't get home until Tuesday. He had to wait in line 13 hours at the airport just to get a flight because he was rebooked for Thursday. They were at the airport on Sunday, but he said if you got out of line, then you went to the back of the line, and the line was throughout the whole terminal. So we've become such an interconnected world. One of our messages to our clients is that any business that uses the internet, that relies on the internet to do their business, is a technology company. And we really encourage you to think like a technology company. But even my wife and I were talking about this over the weekend. She's like, how reliant are we on technology that one technology company cybersecurity vendor had an issue that affected so much of the world, and everything stops. And I mean, that was a big wake up call for resiliency. It was a big wake up call to show us and remind us how connected and reliant on technology we are. But that's the world that we live in, like Chad said. So why is cybersecurity important? Because we rely on it. And when it doesn't work, then we have massive problems from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. Like imagine if you couldn't access any of your money at your bank, or if you can't get home for 4 days because your flight's unavailable or shut down or can't operate. Or as Chad talked about, healthcare, go to the ER and it's not there. There was a big outage earlier this year of a healthcare software called Change Health, and they were shut down. Their whole software was unavailable for at least 3 weeks, kind of bled into 5 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
But there were small healthcare companies that were reliant on this healthcare that were unable to provide services, anywhere from filling prescriptions to some of the healthcare stuff that Chad was talking about, for almost 6 weeks. And there were, healthcare practitioners, the people that own these businesses, taking out mortgages to keep the doors open, all kinds of things. People having to go to other places to get their diabetes medication or their heart medication filled because the pharmacy that they normally go to couldn't fill it. So 2024 has been a big reminder about how impactful technology is in our lives.